Good afternoon, morning, evening, everyone, depending on where you're watching this from. You're very welcome to this very interesting panel as part of Adventures Live 2021. The topic of this panel is being a polyam African woman, the myths, realities, and challenges. Now, we know being an African woman who is polyamorous in a modern, hyper-religious African society is a challenging way of being and lifestyle to actually live. We are not socialized to live this way, and there are very few media models that demonstrate people actively living their truth outside toxic representations of it. Yet finding your truth and living your truth is the most healing and liberating way of life for women and by proxy society. The theme for Adventures Live this year is transformational adventures, sex, power, and magic. And so today we're going to be discussing the topic around this theme, where we'll challenge and discuss the myths, realities, and challenges for African women who are polyamorous. My guests today are two wonderful women I'm totally in awe of, and I'm sure you are all also very, very much in awe of as well. My first guest is Uyaiedu, who is a writer, filmmaker, and LGBTQ plus rights advocate. Passionate about how gender and sexual minorities are portrayed and represented in the media, Uyaiedu is committed to including themes and subjects that center members of these groups and their stories. With an intricate understanding of the power of storytelling, she is committed to using that knowledge to create increased visibility for sexual and gender minorities in Nigeria. Now, she wrote and directed the critically acclaimed film Ife, which was the first film in Nigeria to positively portray and celebrate lesbian love. In 2020, she was mentioned on the BBC 100 Women list for her work in advancing LGBTQ plus rights in Nigeria. Uyaiedu, you are very, very welcome to this panel.
Thank you so much, Akosua. Thank you so much.
And great credits.
Thank you for having me.
And our second guest is Sheena, who is a queer African feminist writer, mother, lover, and daughter who is interested in the relationship between sex, sexuality, and pleasure, and power in the lives of African women and LGBTQ people. She holds a master's in creative writing from the University of Witwatersrand and a Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism and psychology from the University of Namibia. Sheena has over a decade of working experience in social justice movements and organizations across Africa. Sheena, we are very, very happy to have you as well. How are you doing?
I am great, and I'm happy again to be back.
Yes.
On the Adventures platform. Always fun times. Yeah.
Yes.
So very, very happy.
Yes, thank you. So we did have Sheena last year, and she's graciously giving her time and experience to us again this year. So thank you so much. I think we're going to be jumping straight in, and I want us to start with our first experiences with polyamory, how we first came to the knowledge of it. So what were your first experiences of multiple amorous connections or relationships, and were these pleasurable or toxic experiences? If you would like to go first, Uyaiedu.
So my first experience, or the first time I even came across the word, must have been around 2018, and I was in a serious monogamous relationship, and we were apart for a few weeks, and I started to develop some attractions for this other person. And it's now, because of how I have been conditioned to think about relationships, right? It now started to make me question how I was feeling about both people. Did I want to end this other relationship to be with this person? I didn't want to do that. I loved the relationship I had with, with the other person, and so it was really confusing for me. So I felt like such a horrible person. Just how we think about relationships generally. And I didn't act on that attraction, and I just read up, Googled, and then I came across the word polyamory and non-monogamy and monogamish and all the many terms. And the thing about language is language gives power, right? And so for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in the feelings that I was feeling and in how I was feeling about these people and these relationships. And then I spoke to that person that I was with about how I was feeling. And it turned out to be an amazing conversation. It was open, it was safe. They didn't feel like I was trying to leave them. I think that we were in such a great place in our relationship that they didn't think that I was trying to leave them to somebody else. And they genuinely understood that I was feeling the way that I was feeling, right? And it felt like such a safe thing for us to do. And we gradually opened up the relationship, which led to many experiences. And I wouldn't say that it was toxic when, of course, I've experienced some toxic situations, but my first experience wasn't toxic. It was safe and accommodating.
You know, that's actually really, really powerful that your first experience was actually the first person actually, you know, welcomed that and understood you, because typically is then, you know, tagged as a cheat, or, you know, and that's what,
Uh-huh.
you know, causes the trauma. So it must have been
Mm-hmm.
liberating
Mm-hmm.
for this person to have done this
Oh,
for
it
you.
was.
Mm.
Yes, it was.
Awesome, awesome. And Sheena, what about you? What were your first experiences?
Well, my first, one of the definitions, one of the many definitions of polyamory is consensual non-monogamy, and there's something important to be said about the word consensual, because I think a lot of us, and not just the queer community, even the heterosexual community, we stumble into polyamory. Yeah, we kind of find ourselves in a cheating dynamic, and then we, again, like Uyaiedu said, language is power. We then try to find the words to define the particularly confusing situation that we find ourselves in. I know of very many couples where a partner stepped out and then said that they were polyamorous, not that they were interested in practicing polyamory before. And I think there's also an interesting thing in the community right now when you think about polyamory, where it's almost presented as an identity and not as a choice. So people will say, I am polyamorous, not that I practice polyamory, or I am monogamous, not that I practice monogamy. And there's something that's very static about that. But my interest in polyamory, if I'm honest, probably came when I was in my first queer lesbian relationship. And my partner was very, very, very monogamous. And it's the kind of monogamy that was, for lack of a better word, a bit stifling. I couldn't fantasize about other people. I couldn't watch a movie and say, oh, she's cute, then it's an issue. I couldn't, and without knowing that the language of polyamory, or that the possibilities for loving outside of a monogamous structure existed, I think the overwhelming experience of being with somebody that was so intensely monogamous, I felt was very unhealthy for me. I did not feel like I could even express certain sexual desires. So say I wanted a threesome, I was certainly not allowed to even express the idea of wanting a threesome in a monogamous relationship, whether or not I wanted to act on it. So in and of itself, I realized in that relationship that monogamy is not right, but what are the options out there? And then I later found myself in a dynamic where I fell in love with somebody who was in a committed relationship. And in essence, what we were doing was cheating. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. But in this cheating, there was no exclusivity. I was still allowed to be in a loving relationship with someone who was in a loving relationship with someone else, but still explore other ways to be in loving, caring, different ways of relationshiping. Yeah, so that my experience was I guess through the back door, so to speak. So 10 points for you, Uyaiedu, for having a very positive first experience with polyamory, because I know so many people who find out on the other side of it that oh no, I am actually cheating. But it would be good, it would be nice to be able to love and relationship and have intimate connections with multiple people without carrying shame and without carrying fear of being labeled something or the other. So yeah.
Thank you. That's a lot to chew on. I want to throw a follow-up question on your premise. Do you think that perhaps also society's conditioning of us from childhood, on how you're supposed to find your one true love, the man in your life and prince in your life, right? So from 6, 7 years old, there's ways you're supposed to condition yourself to find that one partner. And so for someone who eventually starts to have active relationships and then starts to cheat, they probably have never had the language before to know that, or even the knowledge that what the multiple amorous feelings they had was okay. So then they get very comfortable in this cheating, and then it becomes this toxic thing, you know? Do you think that can also happen where people, you never had the language before, so you don't know, and thus you perpetuate harm?
Absolutely. It's no different to discovering same-sex desires or feelings and not having the language for it, and therefore labeling it internally as something bad that you're doing. The same can be said for polyamory. Much as people stumble into it, I think it's a good place to stumble. I think all learning is stumbling. There's no perfect way to come into your queerness. There's no perfect way to come into your polyamory. And so it is easy for the language of polyamory to be turned around into this umbrella term that is just allowing all kinds of behavior that you polyamorous people just, and especially if you're poly-bi, then you are just you just want to be free to do anything, that there are no rules, or there are no limitations, or that you don't struggle, or that in polyamory is some kind of nirvana or utopia, where all your sexual fantasies are fulfilled because you have a host of multiple partners. So the misconceptions for an idea that shakes something as patriarchal and foundational as monogamy, because monogamy speaks to the seed of society, a family. It's a man, it's a woman. So monogamy also has its own heteropatriarchal connotation. And monogamy in and of itself, especially compulsory monogamy, which is what a lot of people are born into in society, is inherently patriarchal. Even if you're in a queer relationship and you are experiencing compulsory monogamy, where you've been told there's no other way to be with me other than with me, and it's you and I, we are one. And this message is romanticized. It's turned into, it's the greatest love. It is just there's something that is all encompassing about you and finding your one, and this is its own its own problem in all frankness. So the misconceptions, plenty. It's not a perfect structure of relationshiping, and I think a lot of people are still learning how to do it right. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me move on to the next question, because you actually even touched on it. So do you think that polyamory, okay, you've already obviously shared your point of view, but if you can expand a little bit on it for us, is polyamory a way of being or a lifestyle, or both? There are some people who say, I have, or I am, and I am this being who is a multi-amorous person, and I have in various ways with my childhood friend and my lover and my, things, people around me, and that's how I love. And then the other people who say it's a choice, it's my lifestyle. I choose to navigate relationships this way because it's how I get the best out of them. What are your thoughts on this? You touched a bit on it, but if you could expand a bit for us. Thank you.
In addition to that, I think the subjective understanding or the subjective positioning of people when thinking about polyamory is powerful and important. Feminists, we say that the personal is political. But in doing some reading and in preparing for this panel, I came across a quote that not only for me speaks to what polyamory has been or what polyamory means, whether it's an identity or a lifestyle, but what's important is what polyamory can be. The potential for polyamory in an African society, especially that is very regimented and hegemonic with different religious cultural structures of how to relationship, how to love, how to make family. And it was a quote by I think it was Bell Hooks who said this, who says, "We need to reclaim the concept of love, not as an abstract, all-embracing fantasy, but a set of ethics, principles, values, and behaviors. A love that is justice in action. To begin by always thinking of love as an action rather than a feeling is one way in which anyone using the word in this manner automatically assumes accountability and responsibility. Culturally, all spheres of life, politics, religion, the workplace, domestic households, intimate relations, should and could have their foundation in a love ethic." How this speaks to polyamory for me is that polyamory at its best, when it is practiced with two consenting adults who are present in the relationship and understand or practice feminism, therefore are negotiating power constantly and consistently, would then mean that polyamory is a space for accountability. It is a space for transparency, respect, and care. And that is love. That is love. And I think polyamory has within itself the potential to radically transform our societies through how we love, how we choose to love. Because in a polyamorous structure, you would then have a very different way of imagining what a family is. And you would be able to raise children or raise each other or raise people who have a very different idea of what a family can look like. And it's not hierarchical, and it is not patriarchal, and it is not power over. It's power with, power within. Power is shared in this structure. Done right, polyamory for me is a radical decision. It's a radical political decision to love in ways that dismantle patriarchal ways of seeing the world and and how people make family. But the how, we have to do the work of getting the how right, because I think that's where we stumble sometimes in trying to do it in healthy ways.
Uyaiedu, Sheena has just shared some very powerful thoughts on polyamory being, this vehicle for dismantling, patriarchy and learning how to radically love. So I want to know from you, what are your thoughts on polyamory, right? As a way of being was a question we were kind of on. What are your thoughts on polyamory as a way of being or a lifestyle, or is it both? What do you think? Is polyamory a way of being? Is it a lifestyle, or is it both?
To be honest, I think that I lean more towards a lifestyle, and I think that anybody who's willing to have an honest conversation with themselves, anyone who's willing to confront and question everything that they've been conditioned to believe about relationships, can be able to have experience successful multiple relationships at the same time, as long as they're willing to communicate, be more open, and not think about jealousy, for example, as I hear people say all the time that, I'm too jealous for polyamory, I'm too jealous. And I don't think that that's the thing. I think that a lot of polyamorous people experience jealousy at really high degrees, right? But they just handle it differently, they confront it differently, they think about it differently. They don't think about it as, oh, this this wall, this fence, and beyond, you can't think or you can't feel anything beyond this fence, right? Because like every other feeling, jealousy passes, jealousy fades. As long as you're able to think about what's making me feel the way that I'm feeling, right? So I think that anyone who's willing to confront these things will be able to practice polyamory. I don't think it's a thing that, oh, and also people who practice polyamory are able to practice monogamy, right? Are able to be in monogamous relationships. However, they would probably want it to be more conscious, not like just get into a relationship. Everyone just assumes it's monogamous, right? We talk about it, we decide that okay, we're going to be monogamous. So I think that anyone can practice it as a lifestyle because of how liberating it is. Sheena, I was hearing the last bit of what Sheena was saying about how it can force you to think about family, for example. Think about how these things can be built and developed differently, right? It doesn't have to stick to the regular patriarchal structures that we know. We think about family as community and fluid and can change, right? It doesn't have to be fixed, it doesn't have to be stagnant. So yes, I do think that it's more likely a lifestyle.
Okay, and just piggybacking off what you said and linking to what Sheena said about it being a radical way to love. You mentioned jealousy and how it doesn't mean that poly people are not jealous. It just means they approach it differently. If you want to now look at the world in that light, that sometimes I can go to work and my colleague can bring a specific emotion or mood. If I act in that emotion or mood, I'm, going to make things worse. As opposed to if I have that habit of checking and knowing this is an emotion, this is a mood, and practicing polyamory and practicing how to control your jealousy can give you a skill in that way. What do you think about this, Uyaiedu?
Sorry, what do I think about? Could you repeat the last part?
Okay, so I think I was rambling a bit, but I was just trying to talk about how, you mentioned how poly people just approach jealousy differently, but it doesn't mean that they are not as jealous as others, right? So it's how, for instance, through that you've learned a skill to recognize what comes on as a mood or as an emotion, but it doesn't mean I have to act on it. It doesn't mean I hate a person because
Absolutely,
yeah. So how does that translate into other ways
absolutely.
of being? Yeah.
Okay, so that's a really good question because um, it has let me think about feelings as passing, fleeting things, as temporary, right? So I think about myself as a place, as the place, right? And all these feelings pass. And so even if I'm sad today, I remind myself that this is just a feeling, right? That will pass because I felt other things before. So in the same way that when I feel jealousy, I recognize that it's not about this person or what this person is doing. It's about me and what I'm feeling right now. And I recognize that it will pass because I've also felt other things with this person. I felt safe, I felt happy, I felt sad, I felt all kinds of feelings, and I recognize them and I value them, right? Because they forced me to think about my own self, forced me to think about what trauma I'm refusing to confront. Just things in my life that could have caused me to build up to this place where the person's actions can make me feel the way that I'm feeling, right? And reminding me that many times it's not about that person or their actions, right? Because many times the person who loves me is not trying to hurt me, is not trying to intentionally make me feel jealous and make me sad, right? As long as I remember these things, and this has helped me think about feelings as very temporary, and it's helped me stay sane, especially with relationships, with many other aspects of my life. It just helps me stay grounded and sane.
Yeah, and it's ongoing work. It's ongoing work and commitment. So yeah, Sheena, I wanted to throw this to you. We've been talking about it, but I wanted to expand a little bit on the myth that, or the possible myth or misconception that polyamory is for people who are afraid of commitment. I think in your submissions earlier, what I've gotten is the fact that it's actually even more work and even more commitment, and even more, if you can say, than monogamous relationships. What do you think, Sheena?
It's definitely a challenge. It is not easy. Um, Choosing to love in ways that don't have any popular narratives to encourage you. You know, a lot of the things when you have it in film, and you have it in books, and you have it in all those like really horrible romance novels we used to read in high school, where certain behavior is rewarded. We don't have many popular narratives that say how to be a good polyamorous person. These are the rewards waiting for you the other side. It's not in film, certainly not in African film, huh? Because anything that we see is polygamy, and that is its own problem. And it's not consensual, even then again. So it's hard. It's hard, and what Uyaiedu said is so true. It's the thing that polyamory does that monogamy doesn't often do, is that it makes you responsible for yourself. It makes you have to sit with yourself and confront certain emotions that come up, the feeling of jealousy. I know that I didn't think I was a particularly jealous person, and when I was in a particular kind of poly arrangement, there were certain people that evoked more jealousy than others. So there were some people you're like, it's okay. And then there are other people you're like, hey, this is. Yeah, if we're honest, there's certain people you're like, why? But then I have to sit with this, because this is a person I love desires this other person for their own reason. And in the same way that we don't like the same kind of yogurt, that's also okay. So it's sitting there like, what is it? What is it in you, Sheena? What are you dealing with in this moment? What is evoked? What is provoked in a particular poly dynamic between your partner and somebody else, or that is evoked in your partner between your own poly dynamics with other people? What is that? And I'm very thankful to have a partner who is always willing to sit in this conversation. And we will workshop it. I blame the NGO industrial complex for gifting us this language of monitoring and evaluation, because we will do that work, and we will get a flip chart, and we will draw images and say, I feel like this, and some of it we take to therapy, and unearth the feelings, unearth what is the because a lot of the times it's not jealousy. Jealousy feels like shorthand for something else. It's a hurt. Something hurt you, or something is triggered in you by a particular interaction with a particular person of a certain situation, and it feels unsafe. So it's not feeling safe, and therefore it's wanting to come back to a place of safety with yourself and with your partner, and to trust. And the work that I think polyamory does, that monogamy doesn't really enforce, it's the thing of accountability. It's being able to sit across from somebody you absolutely love and say, I am very attracted to somebody else. I like them for this reason, and trust that they will be able to meet you where you are. But you need to also be able to sit across from someone you really love and hear them say that they are absolutely attracted to somebody else, and meet them somewhere there. So it is a lot of self-work, and I think people don't always want to do the self-work. And that's why it's very easy to start creating myths and all kinds of weird things around things that require you to do the work within yourself. So yeah.
This is great. Thank you so much. A lot of nuggets I'm chewing on right now. So Uyaiedu, I'm going to throw this question to you. Sheena just mentioned, finding someone who meets you where you are. So off of this, I want to know, what do you think are some of the challenges for polyam African women? Is it sometimes really difficult to have someone meet you where you are? Do people take you less serious because they assume you are poly, so I might as well just do whatever and not care about you? Or what are some of the challenges you think African women who are poly go through?
So this, first of all, right, my first challenge, me personally, would have to be talking to my friends about it, right? So it's always so crazy. And so I say to my friends that, oh, this person I'm dating didn't tell me or didn't communicate to me that this was happening. And they're like, they don't need to do that. Like, everyone just misunderstands, and it's so wild. Like, you need community, right? So I think that the first thing would be lack of community, right? Because most of my friends don't get it, and I don't have a lot of people who get it, who I can talk to about these things, so we can bounce off thoughts. Like, that would be one big challenge that I think that a lot of the African polyam women experience: the lack of community. Most of our communities are online, right? No actual physical, intimate community. And secondly, yes, people struggle to take me serious. It's, people think that we don't get hurt. People think that we don't feel all the feels, have all the big feelings, right? People think that your feelings are fleeting and shallow, and because you have so many people, if I hurt you, you can run off to this other person and be comforted there. But it doesn't work like that, right? Because every relationship is different, every relationship is unique, and I can be feeling all these big feelings with you and want an actual commitment with you, right? But people think that you don't want commitment, you don't want anything at all. You just want, like, I mean, there are some polyam people who do not want commitment, right? But I think that it's unfair to just assume that of every polyamorous person that you meet. Another very common challenge is, as soon as you mention that you're polyamorous, everyone thinks that you're down to be sexually intimate with them just because you're polyamorous. I'm not trying to stick with everybody, so they just think, oh, because you're polyam, so you're down to do that, so you're attracted to everybody, but that's not what it means, again, right? And I feel like I'm constantly having to explain myself, constantly having to translate my feelings and my soul, basically. It's such a struggle, right? And I think that another really big challenge, and one that is really happening to me a lot more recently, people just assuming that they can change you, right? So when you meet people who are not necessarily identifying as polyamorous or interested in polyamorous, but they find themselves very attracted to you, right? So they're like, oh, okay, I think that we can start an open relationship, we can be non-monogamous together, while hoping that they can get you to just want only them. And that just means that you're going back to back with relationships that are failing, because people are expecting you to meet needs that you're not able to meet. People are expecting you to be this person that you're not, even if you're expressly said who you are, right? They think that it can change you, or they think, oh, you haven't found the one yet. When you find that one person who will make you commit and stay with this one person, and it's cute to listen to. That's not who I am. So yes, I would say that those are some of my main challenges.
Wow, Charlie, you were preaching. You were preaching. Thank you very much.
Right?
But what are your thoughts on what she said? She shared a lot of powerful truths about how people also relate to you. These are some of the toxic relationship dynamics that can come up with you being poly, people wanting to change you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the moment you introduce yourself as somebody that is polyamorous or practices polyamory, expect to be misunderstood, whether out of ignorance or intentionally, because people wish to change you. The wish to change is very present, where someone says, oh, and someone says, oh, you just haven't met the right person. And I like to draw parallels between these realities and say the realities of being queer, where you tell somebody, you tell a man, I'm actually a lesbian, I'm only attracted to women, and they say, well, you just haven't found the right penis. And like, it's not so simple. It really, really isn't. Yeah, that's not what's happening here. But something that I think I'd like to just dig a bit deep on Uyaiedu said is the idea of sexual frivolity, where because you're polyamorous, you are just DTF, you're just down to fuck, you're ready, you're good to go. And this is something that is done very quickly, very easily, when we're trying to intentionally misunderstand certain ideas or certain ways of loving or being in the world that deviate from what has been decided is the norm. And it's, again, similar to being queer. The focus that's put on the sex, the sex completely invisibilizes the love. The idea that we actually love other people. We love many people. Why is it so bad to love many people? I do not just want to sleep with many people. I want to love many people. And also, polyamory isn't just sexual freedom and expression. There are people who are polyaffective, who allow themselves to have deep, meaningful, emotional relationships with other people. There's no sex. No one is sleeping with anybody. But I have my primary sexual partner, and I have multiple people that I friendship with and I love and I share with emotionally. And then there's the inverse, where there's people who have multiple deep sexual connections with different partners, but connect on a very different level emotionally. Polyamory isn't a shorthand for looseness. Huh? If I can use African words here, you're loose, you're easy. It's not shorthand. We're not turning looseness and easy into sophisticated English. It is loving many people. And when you bring back, the words of bell hooks, and you bring back the work that love is work. Love will always be work. The movements we love, that we give our time, it's work. To be able to meet somebody in a place that you've never been before, but trust that you're going to be able to carry each other to the other side and hold each other and hold yourself and each other accountable. That is work. Love isn't this cute fluffy cloud. It's never been. Love in itself is respect and accountability, transparency. So it's always important in these conversations to make sure that we bring back to the center of our poly realities. It is about love. When your partner tells you, I love this person, you have to hear the love. And it's not just to reduce it to, oh, you just want to sleep with butch women now. No, that's not what they're saying. I have made a meaningful connection with another human being in a different way. What is more beautiful than that? Being able to say that without feeling ashamed and without feeling the need to run around and be or cheat, because cheating in and of itself, it's not healthy. It hurts you and it hurts the people that you cheat on and so yeah. Love.
I want you. This is powerful, love. So I'm actually trying to continue the conversation on love. And you mentioned earlier radical love, right? So you've explained this. I want you to give us, if you could give us, how do we radically love? How do we do that big love your neighbor as yourself? How do we do that thing? What are tips you can give to our audience, for instance?
The first step to any kind of radical action is to allow the possibility of being wrong. And I think this is where people stumble often, is you become so attached to what you have known to be right for such a long time, you are not allowing room to be wrong. Allow yourself the possibility of being wrong about what you thought relationships were, what you thought love looked like, what you thought family could be, what you thought forever is. Allow doubt. Doubt is a good thing. Doubt everything you've been told about who you are, how to love. Black women this, Africans this, especially when they start to use such tropish language, like us as Africans, we
are you sure? Are you sure that we as Africans are incapable of, or are you sure that there's only this one way to be in the world? Allow that doubt to sit a while in your body and see how it feels in your body, and listen to people. Listen, risk it, risk listening. Like, the most you could risk is listening to Uyaiedu tell you, this is what my poly life looks like. I live with this one partner, I visit this other partner every other weekend, I have another partner in another country, I have an internet partner, never seen each other, but we love each other because when we are zooming, it's jumping. We love it. I also love them. Listen and allow imagination. Allow your imagination to travel just a bit, just a little bit, to imagine loving without shame, and imagine what loving with consent could look like. Choosing, the power of choice, which is why I'm a feminist. Anything that gives me more options, anything, I'm here for it. And this, for me, this is foundational. Well, what gives you more options? What gives you more choices? How can loving in honest and respectful and transparent ways more people ever be a bad thing? Just think about it. It's not just about the sex, people. It's not. It's more than that.
Charlie, thank you very much. You're saying the things. And I love that you already start to touch on, the types of constellations in poly relationships. You mentioned an internet lover. You mentioned a lover in another country. Uyaiedu, can you tell us a bit about, what do our poly constellations look like on the continent? How do those look like? How do they play out from your experiences?
First of all, Sheena, you were saying the things. You were saying everything correctly. So I completely agree with everything that you said. Yeah, so I think that my favorite thing about poly relationships is that they can take any shape and any form, as long as we're willing to talk about it, and it's not stifling. You're not in a box. That's my favorite thing about being poly. So this means that I could be with a person who is married, right? Who is married to another person and not feel like I'm cheating. And we could have I think they call it the kitchen table type relationship, where we can all hang out together with the person's partner and sit around the kitchen table, I guess, and just have a good time. The other ones, you can be in a close triad, 3 people in a relationship together, all dating, all in a committed relationship. This can either be open or not. Yeah, there's so many. You can be committed, you can be married and be with someone else, be with multiple people, and those people can be with other people. Polyamorous relationships can seem almost infinite, because what dynamics do you want? What dynamics are you able to provide right now? Do you see many other people? It can be infinite, it can be closed. 3-4 people can be in a close relationship, can be nesting partners. So many dynamics, beautiful communities, creating families everywhere you go. Yeah.
Thank you. And with the spirit of what Sheena says on the ethics and the consent and the radical love, it can be a powerful way to engage. So I'm going to wrap up this very powerful conversation with what is our theme of Adventures Live this year? This year our theme for Adventures Live is transformational adventures, sex, power, magic. And so I want to dive into a bit of your stories on transformation. Alice Walker says that sexuality is one of the ways we become enlightened, actually, because it leads us to self-knowledge. What have you both learned about yourselves on your polyam journey?
It is always liberating when you find yourself on the other side of an experience that you never thought could be you. It is very powerful. Because I think you unlock, it's like a video game, you unlock the next level love, and being able to love different people in different ways, with the same kindness and consideration and honesty and openness that you demand for yourself. And that in and of itself is just the ultimate gift. So being able to love outside, like Uyaiedu said, outside the box, and not feel limited. Because I know that, at least statistically, a lot of African women are heterosexual. But I also know that a lot of heterosexual African women are curious. They're interested. I think our first love was always a girl or a woman in school. It was always your best friend. It was always somebody that you felt really understood you, but then you were raised to not believe or imagine that you could actually love them and build a life with them and plan with them and, dream of a future with them, So I know that foundationally, a lot of African women, our first loves were women. And now, I guess with greater access to information, through technology and the internet, a lot more African women are allowing themselves to imagine, not having to forsake heterosexuality, but still allow queerness in their spectrum of love experiences, and I think polyamory offers this. It offers this as a way to break stereotypes around how African women should love, how African women should be. Depending on the structure of your polyamory, it also breaks traditional stereotypical roles. If you are in a feminist polyamorous relationship where maybe you're sharing a space, then who does what looks very different to a traditional monogamous or heterosexual structure, where these chores are for you, those chores are for you, the childcare is for, and it's powerful. It's powerful foundational reshaping. It's breaking something that exists, but putting it together as something very different, but also better. And that for me is something that I absolutely, I love. My current relationship was monogamish, polyish. It was polyish, monogamish. It was a mixed bag. And right now, my
different constellations.
It's a whole other constellation. And right now, my partner and I like to say that we are monocurious. We're curious about monogamy. Yeah? We want to try it on for size and see how it goes. But I like knowing that there's room for more. There's room to explore more. And it also brings me back to what Uyaiedu said. It's just because you have outed yourself or you've told people close to you that you're polyamorous doesn't mean that you are incapable of monogamy. It means that you are incapable of many things. You are capable, rather, that you're capable of so many other ways of loving. And that's truly so liberating. More than anything, it's to do it without shame, to do it without fear. It is not easy. It's not easy to sit across from somebody you love and say to them that I would actually like to explore X, Y, Z. I know that for queer relationships, if you have identified as a lesbian and later in your life you become interested in dating, cis men, and it's a thing, yeah, where it's like, oh my God, are you even a lesbian anymore? But polyamory done right would allow you to explore this and say, I am curious. I have met a lovely man, and I would like to explore what it would be like to date a man. Never dated a man. Can I do that? And in a loving enough relationship, you should be able, in polyamory, should allow for you to explore, and your partner say, okay, see how that goes, let's see who they are, and whatever the agreements and the rules are in the relationship. And I like that. I like that. I like the potential for more that polyamory offers us in just rethinking relationships in their entirety. Oh, I've said too much. I'll stop here.
And you said the right things. Thank you so much for showing us polyamory as transformation within yourself, polyamory as transformation in your relationships, polyamory as transformation also for African women in society. You really broke down the layers of this for us. Thank you so much, Sheena. So Uyaiedu, I'm going to end this with you. What transformation have you found being on this polyam journey?
Okay, I'll answer that. But again, Sheena, monoperious, love the word. That should be a word. And so great that you and your partner are thinking about that. I often think about it also, and I think that I'm a bit curious about this. Maybe so very interesting that you're thinking about it. For me, I think that polyamory has shown me how much I love community. How much I like people and I value experiences. I mean, that's on the bright side, that's on the good side. But it's also shown me that I'm such a jealous person. And it's always interesting when I say that. Because people are like, "Oh, I'm too jealous," but I'm like, I'm such a jealous person, right? But that's the beauty of polyamory. Again, I am able to sit with my feelings and interrogate why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. Right? I like that polyamory does that for me. I like that polyamory always reminds me that I have a choice and that I have autonomy over my own self, over my own feelings, over my own body. That I can be somewhere and feel attraction to a person and flirt with that person if I want, without feeling any kind of guilt. Just being able to experience that and even being able to come back and say to whoever I'm with at the time that, oh, I met this person and I had this connection, and it would feel like a safe place for me. I I love that polyamory has done that for me, has transformed my life in that way. I've become much more open and my communication is so much better, right? Because I feel like communication is at the foundation of polyamory. So it forces you to communicate all these feelings, right? In spite of how scared you are. And it builds trust. It helps you to be vulnerable, right? So I'm feeling jealous. This is what I need. As opposed to when I was only in monogamous relationships and obviously. And I just love that polyamory has done this for me. Maybe this person who just feels I'm free to make anyone that I want to make because, like Sheena said, I'm a feminist. I will choose whatever I want to choose, and that choice is not given to me by patriarchy. Imagine that. Imagine that I have these choices that haven't been handed to me by patriarchy or misogyny. This is my own choice. This is me choosing for myself what I want, how I want to be, how I want to love, how I want to express this love, And yeah, that's my favorite thing about polyamory. It's so beautiful that I can experience all kinds of love. I always imagine that if I had stayed monogamous all these years, I wouldn't have met half the people that I've met. I wouldn't have made these great connections and these amazing experiences. So yeah, this is how polyamory has transformed my life.
Okay, thank you. Empowerment, having a safe space to be vulnerable, communication, experiencing all kinds of love. These are very empowering words you've shared for us today, and definitely goes in with our theme on sex, power, magic. What is the magic it does for you? With consent, with love, with radical love. I'm gonna leave here, keep saying radical love. This can be a very empowering experience. So Sheena and Uyaiedu, thank you very, very much for giving us your time today, your experience and your wisdom. And to all of you watching this, there's more on Adventures Live 2021. Thank you so much for being a part of this festival. Please do follow Adventures Live on all social media handles to find out more updates.